Hello, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning. This is a forum by Kebetkache Women Development and Resource Center in association with the National Orientation Agency, River State. Today, we are discussing a gender issue, the localization of the national gender policy. And with me in the studio are two heavyweights on this issue. I have Mrs. Patience Ekong, Senior Program Officer, Kebetkache Women Development and Resource Center, and the big man of the National Orientation Agency, Barrister Young Damno,
Thank you.
and my sister, Sarah Hope Benley Ambari,
Good
of the
morning.
River State. She's of the River State Independent Electoral Commission.
Good morning.
You can see that we are well assembled. We are under the years of the Sustainable Development Goals, and the issue of gender equity is a major issue to the success of the global goals. So I'd like to start with Patience. Kebetkache is anchoring this program, and a major focal point of Kebetkache is the empowerment of women. Tell us, what is this national gender policy all about?
Okay, good morning once again. I will start with the issues around gender equality for women. Women have been shortchanged over time. Women have had issues around gender equality, equity, social justice. And in different facets of their lives, women have been discriminated. And so, we've reached the point where women need to be on equal standing with all the other groups. And apart from that, in the areas of education, in the areas of health, in different areas and different facets of life, women need to have that opportunity, to have that access. Equal opportunities for boys and girls, equal opportunities for women and men, equal opportunities in all ramifications. Not to forget the rights of women and the vulnerable groups. And also to talk about the equal obligations in every ramification. So there is need for women to be empowered in order to face their male counterparts on the same platform. That is why the need for this has arisen. And the national gender policy is a platform, is a framework that also addresses most of these issues that women are undergoing or are facing. And the provisions of the national gender policy always also goes a long way to address these issues. As we continue with our discussions, we will understand what I'm talking about.
Thank you. Barrister, you heard the Patience that the major plank is equal opportunity. This national gender policy has been known for years. Since year 2000, it's been reviewed, I think 2006, and just last year, March, President Buhari appended his signature to this revised edition. And in doing so, he said that it is a framework for pushing boundaries for the vulnerable. You work with communities. What are some of these boundaries that you think that this gender policy will be pushing or has pushed?
Thank you very much. She has actually put it, she has looked at it from the point of view of equality. When we talk about gender policy, we are not talking of women alone, equality between men and women, but we're also talking between boys and girls. The gender policy is also looking at inclusion for those with physical disability, and also for the elderly as much as possible. So these are areas that we are looking at as community-based people, as people with reach towards the grassroots. We are also aware some of the limitations, some of the issues that this gender policy seeks to tackle. And even the government at all levels, not just the presidency because he endorsed the revised version, but even in River State here, there have been some limitations, and there's an effort by the state government to tackle some of these limitations. For instance, you know we had this thorny issue that has been there over the years of genital mutilation. And there is a law by the River State House of Assembly towards dealing with that problem. Currently, some of the issues that have come up are issues of inheritance rights, especially when, for women, when they lose their loved ones, you will notice that issues of inheritance automatically comes up. Some are not allowed to inherit the farms of their loved ones that they have lost. You can imagine the pains that they have to go through having lost their loved ones. Now they have to go through the pains of inheriting not just property, but the finances of those people. Issues of inheritance comes up. I recall that there was a project that we did with Kebetkache during the COVID period, and we went to one of the neighboring local governments here, and we talked with the traditional rulers on how some of these things can change. But one thing that came out was the issue of inheriting farmlands. These are very hardworking categories of society, the women, and yet they are denied their farmlands because they have lost their loved ones. And then you also know that we have, this is more general in the entire country, the violence against persons law, which it was an act, but it has been domesticated here. So we have issues like that, and also issues that we further expect in terms of health issues. Women need to be treated very peculiarly, and even in terms of tackling their health matters. The other one that is also important for a discussion like this is the role of women in terms of participation in community governance. Community governance, that also is an issue. In some communities, they are beginning to allow women, accommodate them even in community governance issues. But this is very limited. So we expect that with time, that with more advocacy, like is being done now, with more NGOs getting involved, that women will be taken into consideration. We cannot undermine the role that women play when it comes to peace building. So these are some of the areas which we need to recognize. And in terms of political participation, that is also key. That is one area where they have experienced some serious limitations, even when there are policies amongst political parties talking about affirmative action. If you look at the National Assembly, in the Senate, you have 7 women in a 109 Senate. And then in the House of Representatives, you have just about 13 or so, if I'm correct, women that are in the House of Representatives. If you come to the state level, you also see the same. But I think we are encouraged with the narratives that are beginning to emerge now for 2023. More women are coming out, and we expect that they should be supported. So there are limitations in the area of politics, in the area of economy, even in the case of our judicial system, unless it has changed, they are not given the opportunity to even bail prior to this time. They are not given the opportunity. I think that has been
changed.
Yes, and yes.
Yeah,
so we need to look at all this.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
You talked about governance,
yes,
community governance. Even in the family unit, the woman most often doesn't have a voice in the issue of how many children we should have, how we should take care of our children, where they should go to school, and things like that. And that translates into the community, where in some communities women are not even allowed to come and sit in the meetings. I've had experiences of that when I go to them. They say, oh, we can't sit with the women. Or if they come, let them sit behind. Sarah, you are in the office that opens the gate to women participation in political decision making. What has been your experience over the years?
Well, let's even begin with the discussion as traceable to 2006. You'll notice that what the women are even asking for is a matter of human rights. Treat me the way others are treated. I deserve it. I'm human. But it looks like, by interpretation, there is just this deliberate attempt of sidelining the women. And because of socialization over the years, a lot of women have come to think about it as customary, so traditional, acceptable. But is it serving you as a human being? Most of the people who made these laws made them to be able to safeguard certain things in the society. They talk about inheritance. Probably they were thinking that the women should all get married. So if we support them to own lands, then they would not want to leave. But what about those that will not be married? Are they entitled to farmlands so that they could generate revenue? I mean, there are so many traditions, especially in Rivers State, where you find out that if you're not married, you're supposed to go hungry because they keep buying farmlands. The director was already talking about when you lose your partner. What about when you never had one? Should you be hungry? So shouldn't those people be taken care of? That's the vulnerability of it. Otherwise, who render them vulnerable? It's because someone is deliberately misinterpreting the law, misapplying the customs and traditions, because this is somebody's child. So what should happen? As you're feeding your children, they should also be fed. Suppose they are left in their families, what happens? They should be entitled. But River State, we have overcome that because this year, the House of Assembly actually passed into law, and that has been signed already, that females are now entitled to inheritance. The inheritance law is now in favor of River State. But there's a difference between passing it and then implementing it at the local level. So that's why localizing the national gender policies quite beautiful is important, because it should start with the communities. The females themselves, are they being socialized, sensitized to know that, look, this law is now in place, so it can happen like this. But no man will give it to you just like that. There will always be a fight. Will the women be ready to, face these fights? And should there even be a fight? That is it. So, as much as you're localizing, also make sure that the government will be very much present for the implementation. Not when you write it in your books, then you stay in the cities and things are happening in the villages. So we are also advocating that government should be very much present. In case where they have to take these matters to court, yes, government should make, administer justice speedily, so that it does not become no here, you go man dead body, go front, keep them up, keep them down. This justice should be served quickly so that it would benefit both sides. But then, when you talk about politics and so on, even in the villages, each time men run into trouble, they go and call the womadas to come and settle disputes. So after settling the disputes between brothers, what is there for them? The same women you ask to sit behind, but you could run to them to settle disputes. And look at it. Even in most of our communities where we are not matrilineally, yes, we still recognize the importance and the role of our mothers. So when things happen in families, they say go and call the maternal home. That's how important the women are. So if they are this important, are you also giving them that relevance? So to decide, if they could say these two don't fight anymore, what actually was the problem? It was this table. Okay, half of it goes to director, the half goes to chief. It means that when it has to do with this table coming into existence, you consult that person. So that is it. So localizing it, we could go on and on and on. But we should know that whoever it is that is interpreting these laws should do it well and help the people who are supposed to be recipients to realize it. Look at in the politics matter. When you talk about female participation and all that, people say, oh, it's just elitist. It has to do with those who are going to positions in politics and so on. Do you know that more women have voters card than men?
Yes.
And they vote. They vote. They are the ones that even take the risk to vote. If they could vote you, why not at least? Why should it be unless at your own why should they be at your mercy? Okay, suppose they're even at your mercy and they pleaded. How many have you given them? Men will just pick up phones and say, boy, come and be the secretary to this. Do they do that to women? Women should also learn to support their own. When they say, chief's wife is going to be the next secretary to the state government, any woman that is there, suppose it were to be a contestable position, any woman that is should be willing to cast her vote for that chief's wife. For most times, we find us interpreting all kinds of things. So we need a lot of sensitization and socialization to be able to improve from where we are.
Thank you very much. You raised a lot of issues. One, Nigeria, we have many policies, we sign on to many agreements. Implementation is a problem. Secondly, advocacy, sensitization. And yes, we are 101 million women in this country. People were at a time making a joke, it may at a point women will be begging men to marry more than one. Beyond that, even for this new voter registration, women outnumbered men. For 12 million, we have about 6 million plus women and 5 million plus men as people who registered new voters. That means that for the 2023 elections, there will be so many women. But we should not also forget the fact that culture has so disorganized the women that we rarely see ourselves as people who can be in decision-making positions. I've attended meetings where it's supposed to be a women's meeting. They think that there must be a man to be chairman. So, patience. The civil society has been on issues of sensitization, empowerment for leadership, and women participation in politics. Do you think that we have done enough, or is there something that we are not yet doing that we need to do, especially when it comes to, because politics is about local. When you say localize the gender policy, it's just sending the message down to the people and getting their commitment. What is it that we need to do?
I would say we've been doing we will not say we've not done anything at all in this area, because for some time there have been the Women Political Empowerment Project for the Federal Ministry, which has worked with women at the grassroots. They've identified women. They worked with various organizations to identify female aspirants. From that, they moved to candidates. They've been training the women so that they can come out, vote and be voted for. So I wouldn't say we've not done anything in that area. Even as civil society organizations, we've been able to work with these women, advocate on their behalf. We've been able to train the women in various areas so that when they get to these positions, they will be efficient and effective in these positions. Because appointing a woman is another thing, being effective or efficient in that position is another thing. And the civil society organizations have been doing that over time. But I think we need to do more, and that is the area we're looking at right now. How can we do more for these women, especially at the grassroots level, in the rural areas, in the communities? We need to work with the community leadership, because at that stage, at that community level, it is these community leaders that man the affairs. And it is these community leaders that can push these women and also work for these women at that level. They are the major stakeholders at that level, the community level. So we need to sensitize them. We need to make sure that they have a different mindset, reorientating their mindset towards believing that women can do it. They need to push for these women. We still need to do further advocacy at this level so that women can also be identified and pushed at this level. They can also be brought out. They can also be looked at with the mindset that they can do it, because that is another thing. Even the women themselves, most times you discover they feel they cannot do it. So we need these leaders, community leaders, to work with these women, to bring out these women. And even the CBOs, even the faith-based organizations, everybody should work hand in hand to see that women are appointed, women are elected, and women also participate in the electoral process by voting themselves. Most times they say women that women don't like helping themselves. But we need women to mobilize themselves at this level, at that level, mobilize themselves and see how they can come forward, support themselves so that they can attain those positions. I think if they do that, there will be a good outing. Yes.
Thank you. I'll just read out a few of the contributions that have been coming in from Nelly Umoren. She says continuous capacity building for community leaders is necessary for them to understand the need for women inclusion. And another, Oma Amadi, says women need value orientation for effective and efficient representation in all sectors of the society. Like you said, they need to do themselves, their own capacity. Rosemary Abehat said the government should not delay in signing this gender localization policy anymore, but we, the women, should put our house together and speak with one voice, because we don't love ourselves. Let men, we don't love ourselves like men do. Then in Anya Emeka Kelvin, he said women are the backbone in every successful society. Neglecting women is like neglecting our growth and development. That is where I'll come back to you, Barrister.
Yes.
Women are the backbone. Leaving them behind means that we are drawing the nation behind. And I know that Noah has been sensitizing. What are some of the things you get when you sensitize community leaders? Because the main thrust of the barrier to women advancement is in the community. What are some of the responses you get when you go to the community leaders to say, give women a chance, include women, get women on board?
Well, first, let me say that one of my colleagues here made allusion to the fact that women, in fact, we're expecting that 101 million women will vote. I think there's almost a parity between the men and the women.
Yeah.
Even though from the way she presented it, it is very clear that we are slightly higher than the women.
No, we are higher.
We are higher.
We actually.
You are higher for this current continuous voters registration.
Yeah.
But when you take all of it, the voting strength in the country,
No, women.
I don't think that women are higher. At least the men are still a few million higher. But the important thing is that at least there's that conscious effort.
But that's
Yes.
not difference.
Yeah.
It does not reflect.
Yes.
What you see is more just women, just men.
Yeah, yes.
And women are just the hand clappers.
There's that conscious effort on the part of women. Now, it was appropriately located in the fact that whatever the women are going through today are culturally based.
Yeah.
Not just culturally, and to some extent also religion also comes in, give them a back stage somehow over the years. But the good news is that gradually, even the male folk, they are beginning to give the women some accommodation, some space. They are beginning to give them some space, and they are actually coming in. If you look at it, we didn't have it this way until 1995 when we had the Beijing. The world as a whole, this problem is not limited to Nigeria, but the world as a whole saw the need for the Beijing conference, where women actively came out and Nigeria also took part. If you want to talk about the current narrative in terms of the feedback that we receive from the field,
Yeah.
the first thing is what she has actually mentioned here. I will tell you that one thing we need is that women actually need to move from a class in itself to a class for itself, a category, a sex for itself, the female folk to a sex for itself.
Stand on.
Yeah, stand on its feet. The common thing, even for men, the common thing is that power is not what somebody just brings to you to come and serve you. You have to stand up and then go and take it. She mentioned a very critical point here, and that critical point is the fact that women sometimes are antagonistic to their fellow women, and that is also coming even from the feedbacks that you are receiving, and that is true. And that is why I said they need to move from a social category in itself for itself, where it is able to identify its own interest and then push for this interest. Part of the narrative that we get from the field is that even the women don't have the resources, the financial resources. But there's also the other narrative, those who have been there, those who have actually contested. I actually don't want to mention names, but otherwise I would have. I know when we had, as part of the preparation in the early 2000 towards election, I had clearly Bolore Ketebu was in the third, she was national president of NCWS. Yes, I had that clearly at the Alfred Civic Center when she said, you don't have to stay back, you have to put in something. You have to put in something. In fact, you don't have to wait for any man to come and sponsor you. If you have some assets, you can apply those assets to actually get to where you want to be. And that was when she was contesting as a member of the Federal House. She said she has to bring some of her jewelries to actually sell because she knows what she wants. She is going there to represent women interests. So you give him something. Women can also mobilize themselves to raise some of the resources that they need. The time has long passed when you look at women who attend night meetings, you call them names. I have attended a couple of meetings with women at non-partisan level in some of the constitutional conferences that have taken place, either as a member of the secretariat of the South for those conferences. And I know that some of the women that represented us, they are self-respecting, they attend those meetings, they are there, the caucus meetings, they are there even till 1, 2 a.m. and they go back to their homes and the next morning. So I don't see anything that should disadvantage a woman from actually contesting. So in terms of feedback, our traditional institutions, they are beginning to realize. I mentioned there during my first intervention, I mentioned here that gradually you can see, you are a chief. Yeah, you're also a chief. Yeah. I know a lot of women chiefs. I can call so many, someone like Chief Eunice Igwe has been a chief long, that was even in the 90s. If you go to, in fact, there are so many now that are chiefs, and they are not just chiefs. Even if we say it is honorary, you will notice that some of these women, their advice is actually needed. It may not be in the open, but we expect that it should be in the open. They actually attend some of these meetings and they give them a voice because of the important role that women has to play. So even our traditional institutions, they are gradually, recently, just last week or so, 2 weeks, when they were doing I think the 90th birthday of the monarch of Ogoloma, the House of Representative member, the honorable member, she was recognized. So even if you go to the titled women and men of Bonny, the chairperson of the titled women and men of Bonny is in the Okereke. That's the chairperson. Are you going to talk about Priscilla Pipwe in Gokana? I think she's from Buda also. So there are many everywhere. So there is gradually, as they push, they shouldn't just be laid back. As they push with more advocacy, with a lot of NGOs going in. In fact, many NGOs are putting the women at the forefront of their peace building processes in the communities, and it is beginning to work out. You know why? The women are the most affected by conflicts. When there's a conflict, the men who have caused the conflict, they run away. It is the women that are affected. So the women are taking specific role even in the area of resolution of conflicts, and we need to encourage them. So the narrative from the field is that gradually there's an opening, that it is gradually being opened up. But even in terms of policy, affirmative action, how many of them are ready to come out? The problem prior to this time has been that women have been their own antagonists. They have been their own problem. But I think gradually we also need to work on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think at this point and on this encouraging notes that change is coming, even though gradually, we'll like to take a break.
Once upon a time in the great land of Otunkwa, there was peace, harmony, and access to clean water, and the people were living great and peacefully until civilization started creeping in, and government started betraying the people, selling some vital portions of the land to foreign investors and big extractive firms. In no time, peace started eluding the great people of Otunkwa. Scarcity set in, the stream that serves as source of water to the whole village has started drying up due to the continuous dredging and pollution from the oil firms that have settled very close to the stream. The government and private sectors erected boreholes and water intervention projects all over the village, We thought our prayers was finally answered, but we were wrong, as in no time the boreholes packed up due to lack of maintenance and oil contamination, which is largely caused by corruption. The people of Otunkpa are now faced with hardship, their source of livelihood destroyed, no water, no stream to fish, no land to farm. When will all these atrocities end? The women gathered and marched, demanding for accountability from the leaders and government. Will their cry be heard? Will they stop polluting our waters and land? Who will give us clean water?
Welcome back. The program is Localizing the National Gender Policy, a program put together by Kebetkache in association with the National Orientation Agency, River State. This program is sponsored by RAPA and Makato Foundation. The goal is gender equity and accountability. And we've been talking about bringing down the message of the national gender policy to the local. The federal government has endorsed it. We are looking at the state endorsing it so that it can be applied. But we also recognize the fact that every state has its own peculiarity. So we will not just be endorsing what has been prepared, but we would like to make our own input. So Sarah, I would like to ask you, what are some of those basic things you think that for a Rivers woman needs to be included in the national policy?
I think that somehow we have not worked on mentorship enough. Not that we haven't. Like for how long now we've been experiencing women being appointed into positions, whether as civil servants or politicians or village community leaders. But do they build their basis where they could always refer to and pick up the next generation? Or would they want to stay there? You know, just like fashion, every other thing will wear out. So even in appointments or in politics or whatever, you know, you could wear out. So after you, who next? You need to build that. So you still hear the men saying, this is my boy, because you actually mentored that person. And you expect loyalty from that person. Have we done that? People could refer to tomorrow. So that even while we are now resting, would only be imputing from the back. Then the tool of lobbying. I know that the world has become very, very open, and we can now talk openly and so on, but we should not underestimate lobbying. I want to believe that one of the reasons why the gender policy itself had to be revisited was that it was struck out, you know, and the way it was struck out was so heavy. Maybe those who were asked to go and lobby for the women didn't lobby, they rather trusted the men. They asked, you know, they sent on errands. They sent them on errands instead of lobbying them. So if they had enough base as, you know, people they had mentored, they would have been able to lobby them and say, this is how we want it. Suppose maybe out of the 105, I don't know, in the House of Representatives now, 109?
109
for Senate. If out of the 109, females had even 70, you know, that matter would not have the gavel would not have fallen so heavy. But did they also not be well enough, or they were just giving the impression that, look, my husband is going to place me there, so when my husband is leaving, he will be replacing himself with me? Was that what the women interpreted? Was that what happened? If it is, then we'll learn our lessons. That the next time, we're going to start mentoring our own. Sometimes I feel that Women always plead additional ground when they're in places. You're placed there as a woman. Probably a prayer group even prayed you into that position. When you get there, you go and bring a man. What is your business with a man? Your business there is to replace yourself with a woman. So that is it. Even the women don't build, they don't build themselves solidly to be able to come back. They think that when they finish, they just go and relax. So you go and relax, the place remains open, and there are men, 1,001 men who are ready to put their boys there, and they replace you. We also need to talk to women the more. In having to sensitize women, there is no end to it. And that's because there will always be a conflict between tradition, religion, and politics. Now, when it is favorable, tradition will merge with religion and abandon politics. When it is favorable for them. So tradition and religion will come together and tell you that it's not religious, it's not traditional. In just a little local community meeting, so women were members of a welfare group, and I said, see, there are vacancies. Why don't you just contest? Some of them told me they are busy in the church. You have not finished staying on earth that God has given you. You're building to go to heaven. Are you comfortable here? I mean, you should be comfortable here so that when you get to heaven, you'll be super comfortable. So we need to talk to them and look, the fact that you're involved in politics does not take away your religious gain. It does not. Nobody should tell you that. Deborah was made the head of the whole Israelite nation. The Bible describes her as a judge. God had already set how the Sisera was going to be killed by a woman with just a 10th nail. If the woman could do that, what is this wonderful thing that you don't want to do here? And we make up all dreams and all stories about how politics goes and all that. No. Then you go correct it. Who is going to be the Abigail that is going to bring down the anger of David? You could be that. So we need to, actually interpret these things properly to women so that they will understand their positions in the society.
Okay, what you have just said is that a very basic need for our own localized gender policy is capacity building for women.
Understanding yourself first.
And community sensitization.
Yes, and it should be done again and again. The NGOs are always there. They're always there. But a lot of people always rely on government. Government is too busy for that. I think so. Government is too busy for that. So it is back again to the community.
I agree that government is busy. But for the gender policy to survive and bring about the desired results, the Ministry of Women Affairs must drive it.
Yes. But not that they will stay with you as often as
they don't have
they don't have that kind of time.
Then secondly, you raise an issue. I think that is one of the missing links in the leadership of the women. Women don't build women. And men build men. So we have to learn how to build. Because if you take an inventory of women who are in positions to see if they've even addressed the issues of women, you find that we'll be on the failing side.
Ooh, and I need to tell you this. You see markets, what we call Ugmagris, all these markets and all that. Sometimes when I pass, by communities and see them still touched, I laugh. I ask, are there female counselors in these areas? They say yes. What did they do? What was their project? If the men never remembered to build anything, what about the women? Knowing that at the end of the day, we'll all go and buy and sell in that market. Where we go and sell our cassava. Our mothers still sell their cassava in the open air. When it rains, they start running away, they will leave the cassava there. The buyers will all go. But if they had good sheds and bring scales where they weigh them, you see that even that cassava trade would flourish better and our mothers would trade better. If it remains, they will stop for it or something else would happen. not just cassava, other things. I was going to Buguma the other day, I passed by the Emo market, where, close to the bridge, and I was told that that market had been there for how many years? Someone said about 100 years. I said, well, I believe it. So no female councillors from the Emoha area. What about the Buguma, Calabari area of it? But they all trade there, and nobody remembered that at least they should put zinc,
For shelter.
for shelter.
I hope somebody from there is watching to pass on the message to the councillors and their representatives. Well, women, they have to make impact wherever you are, because if you don't make impact, you shut the door for other women who are coming behind. From there, Patience, I come back to you. Violence is supposed to be one of the key areas of this gender policy, because the protection of the vulnerable is a responsibility of government and is a major deterrent to development. The Rivers violence state, how do you see it? Issues of violence in the states. Now we have more rape cases. But every day you wake up, you don't know the kind of incident that you are going to hear about. So what should be in our policy?
Okay. From the days of when the Niger Delta youth started their struggle for emancipation and for resource control, we realized that gradually it evolved into emergence of crime called groups, and this has led to several violence and crime, high rate of crime in River State. I would say when this violence occur, women are the ones that suffer more. When there is violence everywhere, women bear the brunt, women suffer. And so the NGP, as it provides for women to be protected, is welcomed. The provision takes into cognizance women in peace building, how women can also participate in the peace building processes, women in security, how the women can also participate in the security of lives and property, just like the UNSCR 1325 provides for the security of provides for the participation of women in security processes. The NGP also does that because it draws its contents from other frameworks, even the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the CEDAW bill, and other international and regional bills. It covers so many areas of security. Security for women, security for not just women, the vulnerable group. We should also remember that when, like during the last amnesty, we realized that the men during the DDR, the demobilization, disarmament and the reintegration processes, we realized that the women were not really involved. But during the militancy era, the women, the crisis and the militancy era, during all those violence, the women participated. The women were the caregivers. Even in the bushes, it was the women that were cooking. The women were the ones taking care of the militants. So they participated fully. But during the process of amnesty, you discover that the women were not really taking into cognizance, which was I think for me, it was really, really not okay.
So how do we do it right?
Okay. As I said earlier on, women should be included in the process. They should be carried along in the process of peace building. Even at the community level, women should be included. They should be heard. Their voices should be heard. Their decisions should be carried. They should be given the opportunities to make decisions at the community level. I know you'll be thinking at the community level where women are not even allowed to talk. How can this come to pass? From all we've been saying, this can come to pass if the culture that plays against women, the culture within the communities that plays against women, that hinders women from coming out, from being heard, is looked at. And I think most of those ones that do not favor women be done away with. I think it will be better. So at every time, women should also participate in the security process, in the peace building process, even at the community level. That's my take.
Okay, somebody, a very bright from Benin, he said that these policies that are put in place, they are not well implemented because they are actually not very sincere. Like the amnesty that you mentioned. Though I know that at the tail end, a few girls were brought on board and trained with a sort of pass, but not as it should be. But what I'm actually interested in now is the question of the peace building is after the crisis. Is enough being done to keep our communities free from crisis? Because as we are speaking now, so many communities are in crisis. And when they are in crisis, it is the women that are suffering. Like Iba now, nobody is living there. And there are many communities like that. So that means the women are displaced. When oil spill happened in Koi, the people were displaced. They were only coming there to come and bury their dead. So you are forced to live in another place.
And you pay to bury your dead.
Yes.
Before you come to bury, you pay the community.
Or you pay to come and bury. So is government, are we doing enough to take care of women who are affected by crisis and also to protect them? Some women have complained around the area houses that when they farm, at the end of the day, bad boys come and harvest. So we are working for people. And these are things that cannot move us forward. I'd like you to comment.
Okay, I think I want to look at it from the perspective of prevention. What are those things that we can put in place? What is the role of the mother? Because most of these things didn't just come out of the blues. But women have a role to play, particularly in the nurture of the child, even their male children. So we have to look at it from that level, from the point of building the humanity of the individual, even as the children are growing up. Make them to have a respect for human dignity. Make them have that feeling of respect, that feeling of love for the next person. And the arguments have been put up, even when cultism was high. What is the nature of the marriage systems that we have? In fact, the statistics, it is arguable, but most people attribute some of these issues to children of broken homes as a major part of it. And I think that is what, marriage is not just there, but we must do everything towards making sure that it is sustained. We are not saying that some of those boys that are involved in cultism and other crimes, that they are not from other homes, that they are not from homes. We are from good homes, stable homes. But majority research has shown are from broken homes. So we have to look at it from that perspective. Now, moving forward, I also think, and I've seen of recent, a lot of NGOs are involved. Peace, trying to teach people about peace. Even until the circle of the project for search for common grounds, until the project circle got exhausted, they were deepening peace in communities. They were seriously deepening peace in communities. And I think we need to build the capacity of our women towards bringing peace. Now that we are all saying, we all recognize that at the end of the day, that they are the most affected by conflicts. We also need to build them up. It is not also true completely that women are not somehow involved in the building of society, but I think much of the time is spent. In fact, I want to put it that the hours that women spend in on spiritual matters, in religious matters. When you go to the church, if I take the churches for example, they are populated by women, and they are taking care of their own affairs there. So let us see how we can pick from some of the values that they have learned in terms of mobilization. There are different groups. You have the Mothers Union, you have the Women Guild, you have the Daughters of Charity, you have the Daughters of Hope, you have the Girls Guild. What do we do with those organizations? So we need to revisit those organizations and see how we can begin to infuse peace building skills in some of these organizations. So I'm looking at it from the point of prevention before we even look at the issue of dealing with it. Now, finally, let me also say that there's a narrative that women were given a backstage during the what is it called? The amnesty.
Yes.
Well, I don't know which phase of the amnesty. When I hear such arguments, I ask which phase of the amnesty. Because in the second phase of the amnesty, which was conducted by 2016, and I think the chairman of the amnesty committee was Kenneth Chinda, the Kenneth Chinda-led committee. We saw so many girls. Yes, the state owned. Yes, I was an observer, and for NOA, and we saw so many girls that came out.
But were they part of those that were trained in OKD?
No, no. This one is the second phase. This one was conducted under the present administration as soon as they came in, and which has given us so much respite. Now, after that amnesty, we had, because of how it was managed, how it was packaged, and how it was managed, we have had so much respite. So we are looking at. So they came out, and they also tried as much as possible to integrate them in that process.
Okay, so the important thing is that we are saying that the two hands.
Yes.
It's better to fly with two wings.
Yes.
If you have any issue, you look at the male gender, look at the female gender, incorporate them so that you build a better.
Women should also recalibrate their own activities in society towards making sure that they are free from some of these inhibitions, some of these hindrances, in terms of actualizing their potentials. They have so much, in fact, there's so much potentials in them. So part of the time that is spent, in some of these other activities, why not bring them in and see how we can enhance our position into decision-making positions.
Anyway, time is almost running up. We've been able to establish that there's need for us to localize the national gender policy. We've been able to identify the fact that little changes are coming in response to inequality, but we need it to be faster. In fact, at the women engage of FIDA last week, the message is accelerate, expand. We want to be there faster. But a major thing that we need to take away from here is that for every woman, wherever you are, think the development of society, because that will incorporate everybody, make positive impact, so that it will encourage people to also recognize that women can hold the space. So on that note, I would like us to just give our final, just short messages. Patience.
I would like to say that the national gender policy is a good one, and it is necessary for us to localize it.
That's why we are here.
Yes, and that is why we are here. And Kebetkache is working round the clock to see that the national gender policy is localized.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, I also want to think that it's a good opportunity that Kebetkache has offered us this morning, but I also recognize the fact that we have only addressed the issue of women inclusion. There are other categories that I think Kebetkache really need to look at. For instance, the issue of the people with physical disability, the issue of the elderly. You know, there are a lot of issues that affect the elderly, and where are they coming from? Some of them even on issues of pension and so on. These are issues that confront them. So it's not a one-stop thing that we will exhaust here. Yes.
Okay, I would say that wherever you're standing, wherever you're sitting, you can always affect society from there. In localizing the national gender policy, we should do it sincerely so that nobody will be left behind. The moment you do it selfishly, then we may not really go anywhere.
So you heard, and for all who have been following us, I saw your postings that women have to stand up. Women should not buy the idea that women don't support women. That after all, men fight. We are seeing what is going on the political scene. But also, what I will say is that women, our leaders, you need to network.
Yes.
Have you seen how Wike is shuttling the globe because of 2023? Governors are moving from the north to River State, from the southwest to River State. That is networking that they are doing.
Yes.
And we should not just be in one corner hoping that somebody will fight for us.
Mm-hmm.
So on that note, I want to thank Kebetkache for bringing this to the public. To also thank Rapper for working with Kebetkache to reach out to more women and to more policymakers for a better living for women. And finally to MacArthur Foundation for providing the fund that is making this possible. To all women, I say, wake up, work hard, let's move forward. Thank you very much. My name is Chief Constance Minju.